It's now my pleasure to introduce Rob Malionik. He's a partner in the complex commercial litigation, securities litigation, and professional liability practices at Latham & Watkins, which sponsored this disaster task force for us. For more than 2 decades, Rob has helped clients navigate financial litigation, creditors' rights, bankruptcy, securities fraud, and professional liability matters. His practice focuses on complex financial and deal-related litigation for financial institutions, creditors, and lenders groups. He counsels clients and the firm on issues of ethics, privilege, and professional responsibility. Latham & Watkins' partnership with Legal Services Corporation made the Disaster Task Force and its reports possible. The task force had 4 working committees, and a Latham Watkins partner led each committee. Rob led the committee on continuity of operations and planning for the courts and legal service organizations. This is particularly fitting for today's program because our esteemed panelists will discuss that topic. Rob, welcome to New Orleans and welcome to Louisiana.
Thank you. So when Latham first started working with LSC as pro bono counsel to this task force, this is about 2 years ago, there was already a sense of urgency, I think. You'll hear the data from others. There had been already, in the 5 years leading up to the issuance of this report, 500 disaster-related declarations. And as we've talked about today, those relate to hurricanes, they relate to mudslides, they relate to tornadoes and the like. I will say, maybe just for myself, I never would have thought at the time that one of the next major disasters that we would be facing would be an international virus that threatens not only to cripple the economy, but is very likely to potentially will impact the same vulnerable communities that have been impacted by all of these other kinds of natural disasters. And it just goes to prove the work of this task force, which is you can't predict what the next disaster is going to be, what it's going to be, when it's going to hit. All we can do is take what we think are some basic steps to try to be ready and to try to do it on a sunny day and not wait for it to be a rainy day. So as we actually did the work with LSC on this task force, we had to think about what would be ultimately the playbook that we would release. And it came down to developing what were a few different elements that you'll hear about more today. So no matter what the disaster, whether we're talking about a natural disaster like a hurricane or we're talking about a worldwide epidemic, there are some very, I think, common themes that we need to be able to think about. Community building, relationship building. You need to be able to do that at the outset among all the different organizations, the groups, the government officials, the nonprofits, the court system, to be able to do that up front. Training, to make sure that there are materials that are out there in one place that everyone can go to and access and be able to get up to speed on what the legal needs are and how to deliver them to those communities that are most in need. How to marshal pro bono services, because there are a lot of firms like ours that want to be able to do the work but don't necessarily know how to do it or do it effectively. And then finally, and I know we'll talk about a lot of this today, is continuity of operation or COOP planning, because the best meaning organizations out there and the best meaning court systems out there can't do their job if they can't keep the lights on, if they can't keep running, if they can't be available to provide the services that they need to provide to those who are most in need after a disaster strikes. We're going to hear more about all of this, I know, during the program today. Part of what I want to convey is how thankful we are as a firm to be able to partner with LSC, to work with everybody who was a thought leader, a lot of the people in this room and others, and we've been around the country on, in field hearings, hearing about the day-to-day stories of the people who are in the trenches, working with them, the business leaders, the court officials, the government, those from the government agencies that have been involved, and hearing about, as they volunteer their time, what it is that we can do to try to marshal all of that together into this playbook. It's been a privilege, really, to be able to do that work for Latham. Over the last 20 years, Latham has provided $2 billion worth of legal services, pro bono legal services. We're always looking for a way to make a lasting impact. That's what we look for. And that's what the task force provided. In the last 12 months, we've provided $200 million worth of pro bono legal services. And on the task force, we've provided $2 million worth of pro bono legal services. It is not hard to get folks in my firm to want to get engaged in something like this. Okay? No. Obviously, we regard it as an obligation as a firm to provide this kind of work. I think that is what we should be viewing it as. For me personally, I do take this as a very personal level. This is important to me. So last year I provided 700 hours of my time in pro bono legal services. I love doing it. A lot of that related to the work that we did with the task force. It's something that I'd love to be able to do every year. I can't do it every single year, but I love to be able to do it, and more of us should be doing more of it. Right, Judge? I will say that the pro bono services that we've provided, I'll say, are what we've provided so far. So Lynn and I were talking about this today. Lynn Jennings and I were talking about this today. And I know John Levy, who's not here, he says this often on behalf of LSC. What we don't want to do, what I personally don't want to do, and I'm personally invested in making sure that what we've done here is not just produce a report or a playbook that then sits on a shelf, but that it then becomes a living project that then allows the recommendations to get implemented. And now that's the work that we'll do going forward, and that we really look forward to as we continue to work with LSC and the same business leaders and government agencies and the thought leaders that are all in this room and that we've been working with for the last 2 years. So with that in mind, why don't I stop and we can continue on with the program. That's what we're here for, so that we can talk about the ways that the task force can make a lasting impact going forward. Thank you.